Even if players only log in for 3 minutes a day, those minutes should feel great. This build lasting affection and sustain a game for 5, 10, even 20 years. Solemnly 2025. With more and more characters being added to the game, it's natural for us players to feel a bit lost about which one is actually worth investing in. Suddenly, cost-benefit analysis become our best friends, asking ourselves if the value, quality, or the future potential of a character really justifies the price we pay. Of course, not everyone pulls purely for performance. Sometimes we just like the character's design, voice, or play style. But let's be real, in a space where monetization strategy drives so much of the experience, especially in the Gacha ecosystem, almost every new release introduces some form of benefit. Take Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail. No matter how much you try to defend them, power creep is an undeniable mechanic in critical stages of their life cycle, which results in many older 5-star units ended up sidelined or worse, completely irrelevant when it comes to clearing the latest content. Thankfully, Wuthering doesn't really suffer from power creep at all. No, I'm just trying to gaslight you by pretending it doesn't exist. But let's be real, it does, kind of. Augusta will definitely outdamage Talcaro, and Cartithia can outshine Gion in terms of raw damage number easily. But here's the thing, the game is only 1 year old, and so far, Kuro has handled power scaling and meta balance a lot better than most of its competitors. Instead of instantly invalidating older characters, WuWa still keeps them functional and relevant within the current content cycle. In this video, we're gonna break down about the power creep in Wuthering Waves, but before we get into it, quick word for our sponsor for today's video, ldshop.gg. ldshop.gg is a reliable top-up platform that offers you fast and safe service with more than 2k positive reviews on Trustpilot. On top of all that, you can get your Lunite at discount saving up to 25%. All you need to do, choose your top-up, proceed to payment, fill the required info, and your order will be here in a minute.
The first recharge bonus will also be activated after the top-up, so you don't need to worry.
On top of all that, spend $80 in a month to claim free Lunite subscription. Newly registered user will get 15% off coupon. Not enough? Use my unique coupon for another extra 5% off that you can find in my description box. So now let's get into the video. So does power creep exist in Wuthering Waves? Yes, kinda, but not in the most critical way. Most of the time, when a character feels a lot stronger than the older ones, it's usually on their release patch. Is it a bad thing? Not necessarily. In fact, during their launch version, they're designed to feel stronger than anyone else. But that doesn't necessarily put all their units into the unusable tier. That's because so much of the game content is built around those specific units. In the end game especially, the synergy illusion plays a massive role. Encounters are often tailored to highlight a character's strength. If the new character is a monster at single target damage, you'll be fighting a giant boss instead of waves of smaller enemies. This illusion naturally makes newer characters look like they perform better than the older ones. On top of that, most Wuthering Waves characters have pretty different playstyle archetypes, so comparisons are not always one-to-one. For example, both Cartithia and Zani are amongst the strongest damage dealer in game, but they function pretty differently. Cartithia is designed to be able to handle enemies solo with consistent result, while Zani can pump out an insane damage by herself, but at cost of decreasing her liberation duration, which actually makes her solo clears take longer. Or take Jinshi for example. She's easily one of the strongest nuke DPS in game, but on her own, that doesn't perform as well, because it's much harder to consistently build up her forte, which is where the majority of her damage came from. But it doesn't change the fact that the new characters hit harder than the older one. Well, true, but here's the unique thing about Wuthering Waves. Clearing challenges doesn't revolve around one character. Dungeon mates, I'm not talking to you. Unlike the other games, Wuthering Waves actually take this chance to manage power scaling in a more thoughtful way, especially in the endgame content. Other titles often build an artificial difficulty wall by simply cranking up enemies' HP to a ridiculous level. It's the easiest way, but also the laziest approach. Wuthering Waves, on the other hand, raises the challenge differently. Yes, they increase the enemy's HP, but they also increase the skill ceiling of their characters. High ceiling units become the solution. not just to prevent the one-shot clear, but to also boost the engagement factor that make the gameplay feel fun and dynamic. Take Prolova for example. She's undeniably one of the heaviest hitter in game, but she's also one of the hardest characters to truly master. Quick swapping, animation cancelling, and the tight execution windows become the threshold for players to fully unlock her massive damage potential. That's Wuthering Wave design philosophy. They reward mastery instead of punishing all their units. Wrong, I can easily finish the current Whimpering Wastes with her without fully understanding all those technical terms. I know, but just like I said, she's the star of this patch. Most of the things are tailored for her advantages, the buffs, the enemies, and stuff. Another way Wuthering Waves control their power creep is through the meta shift. But before we talk more about this, if you made it this far and you've been enjoying my content lately, or you just stumbled across this one, please consider subscribing because why not? It really helps and motivates me to make more content like this, and smash that like button if you are vibing with it. And now, I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Instead of making the new units useful and the older unit useless, the game nudges us to experiment with different team comps. With the recent Whimpering Wastes reset, it's clear that they're actively discouraging players from abusing what's considered OP. For example, Zani's full team can clear almost every content in game, but this time Wuthering Waves basically said, stop for a second, use other characters or you will be punished. This approach adds values to players who invested in older units, reminding us that those characters are still worth building. Even outside the obvious meta darlings like Changli or Shorekeeper, many less flashy units are still shine up until these days. And that's huge, not just for the game's health, but for players too. Older, less flashy characters are easier to obtain, but they continue to hold meta relevance. Look at the roster. Dungeon mains are still thriving. Mortefi still remains one of the strongest heavy attack supports. Sanhua is still basically the universal plug-in GOAT. You can slot her in almost any team comp. And Verena? She's still tier 0 for every single piece of the endgame content. Also, Wuthering Wave's simple mechanics known as the outro skill adds a lot of extra value to characters' overall worth, especially if you got the 4-star units with sequences upgrades that buff that feature. Even the ecosystem is designed to support this mechanic, giving you more versatile ways to build older characters and keep them relevant into this content. New or old, characters are strong, but echoes act as the final seal of synergy that keeps them viable. And then there's the hot topic, signature weapons. A lot of people like to call them the real power creep since they only buff one character and rarely works well with the others. But brother, it's called a signature for a reason. The weapons are tailored specifically to maximize that unit's kit. Sure, they can boost performance by 20 to 30% compared to the free 5-star weapon, but that's also the return of your investment. If you see it as a greedy strategy to push us into topping up, fair point, that's a valid perspective. But at the end of the day, it depends on our approach. The game still hands out free astrites. If you really want your character to shine bright with their signature weapons, maybe it's worth saving for the next banner you feel truly worth your investment. So yeah, I can definitely say power creep does exist in Wuthering Waves, but it's still at the level most players can agree on. Wuthering Waves changed the usual narrative of power creep by twisting it into a more complex gameplay system. Instead of just inflating the stats, makes the new character hit 5 times harder than the older one, make the older support unit unusable, Kuro limits a character's maximum damage output through mechanical skill check and ensures older units still retain values. In the end, it's less about raw numbers and more about player skill and decision making. But of course, the real question is the test of time. Will Kuro stick to this balanced path, or will they eventually lean towards the usual gacha pit where milking players become the top priority? So I think that's all from me for all this recent power creep issue, but what do you think? Let us know in the comment section. So that's all for today. Thanks for watching.